Hey Camp Korey, today you're going to get to make some awesome sea creature stuffed animals. We'll be making a crab and a dolphin. Enjoy! First, you will need your pattern pieces. For the dolphin, you have two pattern pieces. The first one's for the top of the dolphin. You will cut that one out twice. The second one is the bottom of the dolphin. You only need to cut that out once. For the crab, there's only one pattern piece, but you will need to cut it out twice to make the top and the bottom. Next, you'll need fabric to cut the pattern pieces out of. For myself, I thought it would be fun to have two different colors for the pattern. So for the top of the crab, I plan on using the dark purple and the flower purple on the bottom, and for the dolphin, I'm going to use the bottom as the blue flower fabric and the top as the solid blue fabric. So you can choose what you want to do, that's just what I think is fun. These are the tools you'll need for your sewing project. You'll need pins to put the project together, and if you don't have a sewing machine, you can use a sewing needle instead and just hand sew the project. I'll give an example of both, so don't worry. The next thing you'll need is some scissors. You can use regular scissors for cutting out the paper and the fabric if you don't have fabric scissors, which are these. They make cutting out fabric really easily, but don't use them on anything else because then it makes the scissors dull. The next thing you'll need is thread. If possible, try to choose thread that matches your project. So if you have a blue project, try to use blue thread. It'll just look better when it's sewn together. Then, if you want your creature to have eyes, you can either use buttons or googly eyes and just hot glue them onto the fabric when you're done. The final item you will need is stuffing. Stuffing it is what makes the animal so cuddly and cute. If you don't have stuffing, don't worry. You can shred up old socks or t-shirts instead. Just make sure they're clean so your stuffed animal doesn't smell. Before you're able to sew, you will need to cut out your pattern pieces. For the dolphin, you'll need 2 pieces of fabric. To make it easier, you can put the fabric together and then pin the dolphin onto it. That will make it faster when you cut it out. For the next piece, the bottom of the dolphin, you only need 1 piece of fabric, so you can pin the pattern piece on top of this fabric and then you're ready to cut it out. You want to cut as close to the edge of the pattern piece as possible because this will give the right shape and size of stuffed animal that you want. After cutting out the pattern pieces, you now want to pin them together so they are ready to be sewn. When you're pinning fabric together, think of it as a sandwich. When you're putting your sandwich together, you want the fabric that faces the inside of the sandwich to be the right side of the fabric, or the fabric where the colors are the brightest or you can see the pattern the easiest. The wrong side of the fabric will face the outside of the sandwich. This will be the part of the fabric that's either white or is just not as colorful as the other side. The reason we do this is when you sew the pattern pieces together, you are going to turn the stuffed animal right side out, and then all the stitches will be hidden inside the stuffed animal. You'll see this more clearly in future clips. For the dolphin, pinning to get it together is going to be a little more complicated because you are going to be pinning just the first piece and you're putting the 2 pieces together at the top of the dolphin fin. Are you exhausted from cutting out all those pattern pieces? Take a break and invite over a friend for a cup of tea. A cup of tea is like chicken noodle soup for the soul and best shared when with friends. Yum! Alright guys, I'm going to show you how to hand sew really quickly because for most of the video I will be using the machine, but I want everyone to know how to hand sew if you don't have a sewing machine. And so all the steps I do with the sewing machine you'll be doing pretty much the same way, but just instead with needle and thread. And actually with these stuffed animals, they're pretty small, so it won't take that long to hand sew them. And in a way, it might be easier to hand sew them because with the dolphin and especially with the crab, there's so many small little turns like with the claws that it would be actually harder on a machine. So even if you do have a sewing machine, you can sew you could sew most of it on the machine, and then when you get to these small, more intricate parts like the claws, you can take it off and then hand sew it. So for hand sewing, the first thing you do is you choose your thread. So I've gotten my purple thread for my purple crab, and so you want to choose a color that either goes with it or is the same color as the project. And then you're going to do a knot at one end of the thread. And when you do a knot, one knot is not going to be enough. You want to do the knot 2 or 3 times, and you're going to do this knot, and you want to, when you do it, you make sure that the knots land on top of each other, so it makes one big knot. It's not like you're making 4 different little knots, you're just making one big knot. So you can kind of see it here. See, the knot is pretty visible, and so then it won't go through the fabric, because if you do it one time, it's not going to make a difference, and when you pull the needle through, the thread will go straight through, and that would be really frustrating. So now my thread is ready to be threaded. This. Okay, this is actually a good example. Sometimes even though your thread is, you think it's ready, it just gets super frayed at the end, so you basically just cut it a little bit, and so then it's smoother and there's like less frayed ends. And hopefully now it'll be ready to work. Yay! There we go. So then you pull it through, and when you pull through the thread, make sure that you've pulled through enough that it won't come unthreaded while you're sewing, because that's really frustrating. If you have too short, like if it was really close to the end like that, you could easily pull it through and it would accidentally come out. So you want to make sure, oops, now I've unthreaded it. Okay, good job, Rosalind. Okay, so make sure it's long enough so that it doesn't accidentally come out. So on the fabric, you can see the little dots with the A and the B. That is where you're going to keep the opening. So that's going to be it's going to be on, for me, it's on this side of the crab. So this part of the crab, I'm going to want to keep open. So you can mark that with some pins so you don't forget. And if you have, I only have yellow pins, but if you have ones that are different colors, you can mark where the opening is going to be with like some different ones. Otherwise, just try to remember why you have these two next to each other. So for me personally, I'm going to start on one side of the opening so I don't forget, and so then I'll just go all the way around, and then I'll remember to stop at the other side. So when you're sewing, you're going to put your first stitch in, pull it through, and the knot will stop the thread from going all the way through the fabric. When you're taking your stitches, you don't want them to be super far apart. So I'm not going to do like my next stitch all the way over here, because if I pull that through, it's going to be a huge gap and all the stuffing could fall out of there. So you want your stitches to be really close to each other, maybe basically right next to each other if you can. Because the closer your stitches are, the more seamless it will come together, and like no stuffing will come out. It will just look nicer. So this can take some time to do. As I said, these stuffed animals are pretty small, so it won't take that long to sew it. But you can just listen to an audiobook, music, watch a TV show, whatever is your thing, and that can kind of keep you entertained while you're doing this. And so you're just going to keep on going all the way around. And so for me, I'm just doing this as an example. So I'm going to stop in just a moment, and I'm going to do the rest on the machine. So I'm stopping here. If you're hand sewing, sew the whole thing. Please don't just stop at the arm. But when you do get to the end, or if you haven't cut your thread long enough and you realize, oh no, I need to get a new piece of thread, how you finish a stitch is, so you don't want to just leave it like this and cut it and be done, because it will come undone. So what you're going to do is, let's say I decide to finish my stitch here. I am going to sew another stitch in the same spot where I finished, pull it almost all the way through, but stop when you see that there's this little loop here, and I'm going to put the needle through the loop and pull it all the way through, and then it's going to tie a knot in the fabric. And I like to do this more than once. I usually do it about 2 or 3 times. Oops, I forgot to make the knot. So you're going to pull it almost all the way through, stop when there's a little loop, put your needle through the loop, pull it, and make another knot. And then that will keep this thread nice and secure so it won't come undone, and make all your beautiful sewing fall apart. So you can do this either when you are realizing you're getting to the end of your thread and you need to get more. You can make a knot, get more thread, and keep on sewing. or if you have reached the end of your project, this is how you finish it. So I'm going to stop now and I'm going to finish it up on the machine, but if you're hand sewing, keep on going. You got this. You're doing awesome. Well, hello there. Welcome to my sister's sewing room, which she lets me use. And I'm going to be showing you here how to use a sewing machine to sew the stuffed animal if you have one. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to thread a machine, but keep in mind I have a Singer Curvy, which is a type of sewing machine, but pretty much any sewing machine will work the same way for threading, or at least very similarly. So for the first part, for the thread that will come from this needle here, you're going to be threading it from the top. So there will be some type of device on the top that's for the thread to go into. So you'll put the thread onto that, and then usually there will be some type of stopper that will keep the thread from going off. So you'll put that on as well. Sorry if this is a little clumsy, I'm doing it one-handed since I'm holding the camera. Any case, so you're going to thread the machine you'll bring the thread over to the left under this little metal arm that's here. And then you'll bring it under there's like a plastic ledge back there. And as you can see, the sewing machine actually has instructions on it to show you, but I have this video just in case. Okay, so you'll bring it down this little slot, and then this is where it will be a little bit of finer handwork. So you're gonna loop it through this little thing here, which I'm not having a lot of success with doing it one-handed, but that's okay. Okay, please hold. Okay, so now for actually threading the needle, a lot of machines will have something that you just have to hook it into, and then you'll pull a lever and it will automatically thread the needle, but the one on my machine broke. So I'm going to show you how to do it by hand. And so it's pretty easy. You just take your piece of thread, and there's a little hole at the end of the needle, and you want to put your thread through that. And then you're going to pull the thread all the way through. So when you're sewing, there's always the thread that's on top and then on the bottom of the fabric that keeps everything together. So there'll be a different spool of thread. It's smaller than the other one, and you just pop it inside here. And then if you can kind of see, there's a little ledge here, and you're gonna pull the thread through all the way back. And that's it. It's threaded, and all you have to do is there's a little plastic cover that keeps the thread from getting pulled out. And you put that on top, and you are ready to sew. We're going to start off with sewing the dolphin. So we're starting with the first piece, which is the top part of the dolphin. So you've cut out two of these, pinned them together so that they're ready to be sewn. And you only pin them at the top where the little dolphin fin is, and that's the part we're going to sew. So I'm going to do that on the machine and show you guys how to do that. Okay, now we are ready to actually sew the top part of the dolphin. So for me, I'm starting from the tail, and when you're sewing it, because the stuffed animal is kind of small, you don't want to make the seam allowance, which is basically just how far away the seam you're sewing is from the edge of the fabric. You don't want to make it too big, because otherwise you're going to have a teeny tiny stuffed animal. There's going to be like no room for stuffing. So I put the fabric, so it's basically at the center here. The edge of the fabric is at the center of this sewing foot. Before you start sewing, you're going to there's a backup button like this, and that's what's going to keep your thread from falling out once you're done sewing. So first, I'm going to back it up. And ta-da! Yay! Now I've started sewing, and it's been backed up. You're gonna have your foot down on the pedal, which you can see here's the pedal. If you are using a sewing machine to do this, when you get to these curves, it's going to be a little harder on the machine. So what you'll want to do is when you're turning those curves, you can stop sewing, and then you're going to go over to the side of the machine where this little knob is and turn it so that you make sure the needle is down and in the fabric. Then there's this lever back here that you pull up that releases the fabric, and you can turn your project and it won't go anywhere because the needle is down, but you will get the project to where you want it to be. And then you can start sewing again and you don't have to worry about losing your place. So now you have the top part of the dolphin sewn together. Whether you did that by machine or by hand is fine. So now you can actually see what I mean by turning the animal right side out. So we have the seams on the outside right now, but you tuck it in, and look, we already have the beginning of our little dolphin. So as you can see, now all the seams are hidden inside, but you can already see the little fin is ready. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the second step, which is pinning this to the bottom half of the dolphin, and we'll sew it almost all the way around, except we'll leave part of it open to put the stuffing in. So I will show you now how to pin the top half of the dolphin to the bottom half, and then how to sew it. Okay. Now you're gonna pin the top of the dolphin to the bottom of the dolphin. So when you're pinning it, you're gonna leave the seam that you've just sewn facing outwards. You're gonna make the sandwich again, and you're gonna pin the top part to the bottom part. And for the bottom part, the right side of the fabric is facing inside of the sandwich. And when you're pinning it together, you want to pin the important parts together first. So you're going to pin the nose, make sure that's matching, and then the flippers, and then the fins. You want to make sure that those parts match up, because that's what will make sure that your stuffed animal is even. If you're using the sewing machine, I'm going to start sewing from the nose of the dolphin and then go around, just so I don't forget to leave the tail open. If you're doing it by hand, it's the same thing. You'll just start sewing by hand at the nose and then go all the way around and leave the bottom of the tail open, and then just go to the other side, do the same thing, sew around all the edge, and then leave the tail open. After I finished sewing the dolphin, I turned it right side out, which you can do by hand, and if any of the corners are too small, you can use a pencil, like I did that for the nose of the dolphin and the fin, just to make sure that everything was ready to go. And now I'm going to start putting the stuffing into the tail of the dolphin, which I've left open, and I'm going to put the stuffing in all the way. I'm going to start by filling up all the small corners, so I'll start with filling the nose of the dolphin and then the fins. And then once all those small corners are filled, you can fill up the whole dolphin, and then you will sew the tail of the dolphin shut. That I showed with the crab, you'll start at one end of the tail, make sure there's small stitches, and then when you get to the end of the tail, just make sure you close up the stitch with a couple knots. For my dolphin, I wanted to use googly eyes, so I just used a hot glue gun to glue them on, because that was the easiest thing to do, but I will show how to sew on buttons if you want to do that with the crab. This is me turning the crab inside out. Keep in mind the crab's a little harder, so take your time, don't rush it, and you might want to use small utensils like a pencil to turn it inside out. The crab is now turned all the way right side out and is ready for stuffing. So you will put in the stuffing in the corner under the arm where you've left it an opening, and the same idea, you're going to be using small pieces of stuffing. With the crab, it does have a lot more small corners than the dolphin did, so make sure you're using a pencil or a pen to push the stuffing up into the arms and the claws, and then once you have the arms and the claws and everything like that filled up, then you can work on filling up the main body of the crab. Alright, so now we have all the stuffing in the crab, so the last thing to do before we put the eyes on is we are going to sew up this side seam here. I'm going to hand stitch it, so just start at one end of the opening. Also make sure you've knotted your thread before you've threaded your needle. Ta-da! And same thing, you're going to be sewing the stitches as close together as possible. When you're sewing buttons on, the first thing you're going to do after you've knotted your thread and threaded your needle is you're going to choose where you want the button to be. So I want it to be here. So first you are going to do a little stitch. So I put the needle through so it's going through both sides of the fabric, as you can see in the image. And you're going to pull it through. And just do this once or twice in the same place so you really have your thread knotted into the fabric and it's not going to come out easily. And now what you're going to do is you're going to put the needle through the buttonhole, pull it down so it's on top of where you want it to be, and now you're going to keep sewing in the same spot. So you'll put the needle into the fabric, bring it up through the button again, or through the buttonhole, and pull it through. So now it's attached to the fabric, but you're going to want to do it more than once because otherwise it won't be held on that securely, and it could get pulled off super easily. So just do that maybe 3 or 4 times, as many as you feel is necessary to keep the button on really securely. Okay, so I'm happy with how securely this is being held on. So I'm just gonna, you can either, sorry, okay. So now what you're gonna do is I'm going to finish up the knot. So I'm just gonna sew into the fabric right next to it, and you're gonna do the same thing as finishing a stitch. You're gonna pull it through till there's a loop, put the needle through the loop, pull it so it makes a knot, and just do that a couple times so the eye is really knotted on there. Oops, sorry, my needle came out. That's okay. Put the thread through the loop, pull it through. Now we have a knot. Okay, so my eye is on there nice and securely. So I'm going to cut off the extra thread. And now you just do the same thing on the other side, and then your crab will have eyes. Alright, so now our stuffed animals are done. We have our little crab and our little dolphin. I'm going to go introduce them to Milo and Remy and see what they think of them. Guys, what do you think of the stuffed animals? These are Milo and Remy's new little friends. What do you guys think? Oh, well, they seem pretty happy about it. Which one's your favorite? Which one's your favorite? Okay, well, these are Milo and Remy approved, so if you want to make them for your animals to have little chew toys, or you can use them as your own stuffed animals, it's up to you. So anyways, these are 2 little stuffed animals, the crab and the dolphin, and Remy really wants this. Alright, okay, I'll see you guys later. I hope you have fun making this project. Enjoy, and I will see you next time.